Hey adventurers, so today's going to be my wrap up for the month of January 2026. So this was almost the best reading month I ever had. And even without it being, and I'll explain why in a second here, but even without that being the case, it was still an excellent reading month. So yeah, let's go through these real quick and just see what I read in January and what I finished in January. To start off the month, I had to finish up The Hobbit by J.R. Tolkien, my annual reread. I was reading this on December 31st and I crossed over into the new year onto January 1st, not having finished it, and I was just finishing it up that night. It was part of my December reading, and so I kind of talked more about it in my December reading than I will be here, but I just wanted to mention it because technically I did finish it in January rather than in December. I did a quick reread of Fleeting Word by Andrew D. Meredith. This is a Collation Legacy story. This is, I actually listened to this on audiobook this time. I have the audiobook from Andrew, and so I wanted to go through and listen to that and just refresh my mind on what all happened with this one, especially having re-listened to Dread Night the month before, December, I believe it was. And so it was either December or November. I'm not exactly sure when I re-listened to it, but I believe it was December. But anyways, I wanted to continue listening to, I wanted more Collation Saga at the moment, so I picked up his Fleeting Word and finished that one up, and that was reread it. It was a reread for me, so I won't be doing another review, but it's a fantastic little novella, super short. I mean, it's the audiobook is just a couple of hours long, and then the story is 103 pages here in the physical copy. So just again, fantastic. Meredith is an excellent author and an excellent narrator. So yeah. Then I listened to The Prairie by James Fenimore Cooper. This was the final book in his Leatherstocking Tales, and so I have completed that series. I'm very glad to have knocked off one series already at the beginning of the year so that I can start moving into some other series. I don't believe I've finished any other series as of yet, but I have made progress in some other ones, and we'll talk about that as we come to home soon here. The Prairie is it's not the last book it's not the last book that he wrote in the series. I believe it's the third book that he wrote in the series. I might be wrong about that, but I believe it was, if I remember correctly, he wrote The Pioneers, and then he went back and wrote Last of the Mohicans, and then he came and wrote The Prairie and then went back and wrote, I guess at that point he would have gone back to the Pathfinder, and then the final book that he wrote was Deerslayer. And so I've read the entire series in chronological order according to the story, and this last book, again, it's fantastic. James Fenimore Cooper is a really good writer, really good storyteller. I found that this was probably his hardest to follow the storyline of. It is there. The storyline is there for what happens in The Prairie, but it is a little bit more difficult. It was a little bit more difficult for me to comprehend what that story was as we were going. It took me getting to the end and looking back to kind of see, okay, what's the through line to this. The other thing about it is I don't feel like there was definitely less from our main character Natty Bumppo in this book, and part of the charm of the series is that character's mindset and the way he thinks and processes things, and the way that he sees the world and approaches interactions with people. And because that was a little bit lacking, because it was less of a focus in this book, my enjoyment of the book was a little bit lower. But it's still like a 4-star book. It's still a really good, for me. I still really enjoy the book a lot, and so yeah, had a good time with that one as well. Very glad to have finished up that series, and absolutely at some point I will most likely be rereading those because they are really, really good books. Then I continued my read through of The Belgariad by David Eddings, and I was on book 2, Queen of Sorcery, and I happened to just get this book in time to film this update, so that's wonderful. But anyways, I listened to Queen of Sorcery, and again, I really enjoy the storytelling that's going on here. I really enjoy the story that's going on here. Eddings' writing, just everything about this book is kind of written for me as a reader, and because of that, it's very much inside my comfort zone and very much something that I am enjoying reading through, even if I acknowledge that there's things that could be improved upon, things that, as we have continued into our more modern era of fantasy, have not continued in the way that we tell stories anymore. But I greatly enjoy these books, and I'm having a blast going through them. So anyways, yeah, I listened to Queen of Sorcery and made progress on another series that I'm reading. So I'm very happy to be making forward momentum on series. That's a huge goal of this year. I finished up my, finally, it took me a while, but I finally finished up my read of The Histories of the Kings of Britain by Geoffrey of Monmouth. This is a apparently fictional telling of the history of the kings of Britain. And I say apparently fictional because from what we know and from the research that has gone on into this book, it appears that it's fictional, that Monmouth created some stories, made up a lot of the events, especially those surrounding the King Arthur tale. And so because of that, it's considered fiction, but I read it for multiple reasons. One, because I was interested, but two, because it's Arthurian literature, and I love Arthurian literature, and it's very foundational for the Arthurian myth as a whole. And so I wanted to go read that and understand it. And what I found while reading it was that there's actually a lot of, basically, and I'll get to this when I get to my review of the book, and when I go back and do my next adventure through Arthurian lit video, when I come to this video, this book to talk about. But what I saw specifically that really kind of was obvious to me, I guess I'll say it that way, is that the Arthurian story that he tells is basically taken beat for beat by Mary Stuart when she creates her Merlin trilogy, her Arthurian saga, I think is what her series, 5-book series is called. Starting with the Hollow Hills, the Crystal, or what is it? The Crystal Cave is book 1, the Hollow Hills is book 2. So yeah, I went into it and instantly recognized what was going on there. I was like, this is really enjoyable. I'm really enjoying this. I'm having a lot of fun with it. And yeah, it was good. It's slow to get through. It took me a lot longer to get through. I was reading out on an ebook. That's part of a big reason why it took me so long to get through. The other thing is I don't know where I got the audio or the ebook, to quite honestly. I don't know where I got it. And it wasn't a very high quality ebook, and it wasn't a very high quality translation. And so it took me some kind of interpretation even of my own to get through what was actually trying to be said in it. So because of that, it took me a long time to get through it. Yeah, but I did finally get through it. I'm glad to have gotten through it and have read it, especially that section with in regarding the Arthurian legend. That's super good for me to have finally read and understand, because it is foundational to the legend. Let's continue on here. I then did a reread of Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. I really loved Annihilation the first time I read it, and then the subsequent books fell off in quality for me, and then so much so that I DNF'd book 4. Less because of the quality and more because that final part of the book was just so obnoxious. I could not listen to the book because of how many F words were in that section, and there was nothing else in that section except the F words, and I was like, okay, I'm done with this. I do not want to press play if I ever press pause, and so I DNF'd that. But Annihilation, I remember very fondly, and I've been wanting to reread it. I've been seeing it going around book 2 again recently, and people rereading it, or people reading it for the first time or whatever, and it's been in my mind of like, oh, I really want to reread this. And so I put it on hold from the library a couple months back, and it came through, and I just listened to it, and it's fantastic. It's very atmospheric, very aesthetic, very much immersive into the story and into the world that's being, in the tale that's being told through this weird science fiction landscape that you're exploring. And it's just fantastic. I really love Annihilation, and I do like the other 2 books, or book 2 and 3, even if I did like them less, they're still good, and I probably won't reread them at this time, but I just wanted to reread Annihilation, so I did that. Then I listened to book 5 in a series, in a 6-book series, and so I'm making more progress in this, in my series, and that is Age of Death by Michael J. Sullivan. I'm very much trying to wrap up series and get some progress through them, because I don't think I've released that video yet, but I have a series update video that I've gone through, and so it's out of date now already, but it's still, at the time of filming it, it's important. But there was some 50 some series on that list that I was in the middle of, had started or whatever, and so I'm trying to cut that number down significantly. But Age of Death, I'm going to say it this way, this is the first book in the Legends of the First Empire series that I've actually really enjoyed. I still have some of my same issues with it, but I felt this one got dealt a lot better with a lot of the issues that I was having with the earlier books, and especially this feeling of one, it being a prequel, which I don't know why I feel like this series feels so much like a prequel, but it does to me, even though I haven't read the other series, the Rye Area. I haven't read Rye Area. This series has always felt like a prequel series to me, and it does. This fifth book didn't really feel like that so nearly so much. The other thing that I have made note of and not enjoyed so much is the way that it's telling this massive, grand, epic scale story and trying to ground us by focusing on characters, and it wasn't working. There was a disconnect between those two ideas and the previous 4 books in the series. This book, I didn't feel that nearly so much, and so that was really good for me. Those two things, plus the story that we were seeing and the characters that we were dealing with and the thematic events that were happening and how it's affecting the characters' stories and relationships, I felt that was a lot stronger than we had seen in a lot of the previous books, and so I really appreciated that as well. So yeah, this is my favorite book in the series so far, and I'm excited to both read the next book in the series, but also wrap up the series and see what I think overall, because I have heard that most people think the second half of the series, books 4, 5, and 6, are better than the first half, but that most people love this series, and so I'm definitely in the minority, and as someone who has been fine with it, and I'm been interested enough to continue, but not really loving the series, and so I'm glad that I actually really like this book. Then I was looking to see if my library had any Star Wars audiobooks that were just available for me to listen to at the time, and I know that on my MBR for quarter 1 I have Splendor of the Mind's Eye, and I don't have an audiobook for that one. I was going to see if I have the physical book. I don't have the audiobook for that one, and I was going to see if my library had it. They didn't have it. But anyways, I was just so I just searched Star Wars into Libby to see if they had what Star Wars books my library had, and I was scrolling through and I was like, that's not a Star Wars. Oh, that's by Lois Lowry. And I found Number of the Stars by Lois Lowry, which I have never read. Apparently, I didn't realize that we had a physical copy of it, but I love Lois Lowry. I love the Giver books the Giver quartet that she wrote. I have some weird feelings about some of them, but especially The Giver and Gathering Blue. Those books are very influential on me. And so because of that, I saw this Lois Lowry book. I was like, well, I got to read that. I haven't read that, and I didn't know it existed. I'm sure I've seen it in the past. And anyways, I went into this one not really knowing what it was, but trusting Lowry to give me a good story and a good book. And it's very much for younger audiences. It is a World War II story. It's set in 1943 Copenhagen, and follows a family as they're trying to protect and get their Jewish neighbors out of the country so that they can not be arrested and taken by the Nazi Germany. And so it was very interesting to approach it for me to approach it as somebody who loves history, who loves World War II history, but also who loves Lois Lowry as a writer. And so something that I wasn't really sure what this story was going to be about, or really knew anything about it until I started listening to it and realized, oh, this is what it is. And so I kind of knew how it was going to progress and how the story was going to end. It is a fiction. It's historical fiction. It's not based on a true story, although it is based on historical events and stuff like that. And it is good. It's really good. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Not my favorite book of all time or anything like that, but it was good, and I'm glad that I found it, because I really should just go look at Lowry's bibliography and see what all she has written, because I'm sure that there's more that I have missed that I want to read. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them. A whole bunch of books about a character named Anastasia. And then Autumn Street, The Silent Boy. Yeah, so surely there's more than just those ones that are on here, listed in here, but I definitely should plan to read more of Lowry's works, because The Giver especially, and Gathering Blue as well, really are very important books to me. And yeah, I've really enjoyed it. That's really all I have to say, and I've rambled enough about this that I shall move on. And then the last book that I finished in the month of January was 3 Coins for the Judge by Andrew D. Meredith. This is a short story. It's a short story. I guess it's not really a novella. It's a short story, I think, is what it's classified as. And it's set in his world of Calatai. So with the same world as Calatian Saga and Fleeting Word and everything that I've talked about. This is about it's basically a murder mystery set in the Hrelgrin Empire, and follows Hrelgrin. It's hard to pronounce his his species names, a Hrelgren police officer, inspector, detective type character as he's trying to solve this murder mystery. And it's really fun. I really enjoyed it. I didn't really know what to expect from it. I kind of had an idea because I believe this is the same character as is in his short story that he wrote for The Advent of Winter. And so I read that, and I'd enjoyed that at the time, but I came to Three Coins for the Judge not knowing that I hadn't read it until a couple months ago when I was talking to Andrew. And so I got the ebook and sat down and read it, and it was so much fun. It's very different than anything that I was expecting it to be. Very fun for me to just read. And so yeah, I'll talk more about this. I will do a review of it, even though there's not a physical book that people can purchase. But the ebook is I believe the ebook is available on his website. And I definitely, if you like Meredith, or if you're interested in trying out some Meredith, I would definitely recommend reading this because it's really good. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, murder mystery set in the world of Calatai with some of his other, not his main cast of characters, something just a little bit different. I thought it was fantastic. Does a lot of world building and cultural exploration and development for the Hrelgrens as well, and that's fun for me. I really enjoy that. Okay, so those are the books that I finished, but there was 3 other books that I was all 3 of them I was super close to the end of when January 31st ended, and I would have loved to have completed them. Had I completed all 3 of those, it would have been the best month of reading I've ever had. As it is, I read 9 books in January, or finished 9 books in January. Technically The Hobbit is that one's kind of iffy on if I finished it in January or not, but nonetheless, 9 books that I finished in January, with another 3 books that I almost finished. It's a fantastic reading month for me. Had I finished all 3 of those, it would have been the best by far, because the other 3 books that I was reading, and I'm just going to briefly go over them, but one of them was Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. So this is my annual read of Lord of the Rings, and had I finished that would have been fantastic, especially since I generally try to do Lord of the Rings in January, February, March, one part per month, just so that I'm not filling my entire month with just Lord of the Rings, as great as that is to do. So I was doing my annual reread of that and didn't quite finish it by the end of the month. Then I also picked up The Boy Who Became a Jackrabbit by Charles Stanford. This is one that Liam has been yelling from the rooftops about, not really, but he's been talking about this a lot, and he was kind enough to send me the book, and it's just fantastic. It's super short, so it's not taking me that long to go through it, but I just needed the time to actually sit down and read, and I couldn't quite finish it in the month, even as short as it is, and I wish I would have, but I hadn't finished it in January. And then the other book that I was listening to was actually the final book in the Lightbringer series by Brent Weeks. And so book 5, I guess, which is The Burning White. And so I was listening to that one, and it was super close to the end, and I was like, I can't finish any of these 3 books. If I could sit down and focus on one book and just read the entire night, then maybe. But I couldn't just read the entire night and finish it up. Still, if I would have finished all 3 of those books in January, just a fantastic reading month. Probably maybe the best reading month I've ever had. Without it, a very strong reading month, very good reading month. But yeah, so just wanted to mention those because they were mostly read in January, and I will talk about them when I get to my wrap up in February, my February wrap up. Okay, I feel like I rambled a whole lot in that video, so I'm going to end it there. Thank you guys for watching an Erudite Adventure. We post videos every Monday and Thursday, and have our social medias linked in the description down below. We'll see you guys again soon. Stay warm.